Hey, I'm Louis Palmer and welcome to PlayBetterDrums.com, and welcome to this lesson on flying around the drums, meaning those fast flurries that people like to play around the toms, and just generally being able to do that at will. You're in a musical situation and you want to bust out something that's energetic and involves moving around the toms quickly. A lot of people will be too worried to do that when they're in that playing situation because they're not sure how it's going to come out. A lot of people don't look where they play, so they'll end up going for something and then it will be just kind of a mess, or sticks hitting each other, etc. So this exercise is a really great foundation exercise. It's not necessarily a lick or a set pattern. It's more an exercise to develop your movement around the drums depending on how many drums you have. So it's something you would practice very slowly, using some patterns depending on your setup and how many drums you have. And it's something you'd work on over a long period of time, 2 months, 6 months, just ongoing. A great warm-up exercise. It's a great hand building exercise, hand technique and strength just on its own as a practice room thing. But then through practicing it, you'll then feel confident to play those fast flurries around the toms at will in various tempos because you've practiced this foundation exercise. And I always think that's a better way of doing things rather than just learning a set lick. Because when you're playing, you're going to be in different situations. You're going to want to play it in different places in the bar for different lengths. So if you practice the foundation exercise, it's the best way to do it. So essentially, this is 2 notes per drum, and then you play 3 notes on the last drum and the first drum. But when we first start the exercise, you do 2 on the first drum. So if I was to use, I've written it out on the PDF for starting on the snare drum and then going down 1, 2, 3, 4 drums and coming back up to the snare drum and then back down again. So slowly, it would be this. So depending on how many drums you have, if I was to go here to here, then it would be. So you can do it on any amount of drums. If you just play a 4-piece kit, then you could involve the hi-hat. So 2 notes per drum, 3 on the last drum, and then 3 on the first drum. And then we can phrase it a few different ways. So I've written it out on the PDF as 32nd notes for the first one, and then 16th note triplets. We'll get to the triplet one. The 32nd note one, you can also cut it in half and phrase it in 16th notes. So I wrote it out in 32nd notes because at the faster tempo, which is when this will be really executed, it's not necessary to have the hi-hat going every 4 notes. You could do that, of course, nothing wrong with that, but perhaps it's better to play it's a little bit more relaxed when you're playing it at those faster tempos rather than having to do that with the left foot every 4 notes. But obviously you can do both, and perhaps at slower tempos it's easier to cut it in half and play the hi-hat every 4 notes. So if I introduce a click a little bit quicker than that, this is 65, but playing 8th notes, so we can hear the note in between, just because it's a slow tempo. When you're first learning this, perhaps don't even have a click and just choose your amount of drums and work very, very slowly until you get that cycle happening and you get used to playing the 3 notes and coming back up with the left hand. Because on the last drum going left to right, when I play right, left, right, I'm then going left, right, left, right, left, right. left, right on the snare drum. And so coming back up the drums, leading with the left, is something that a lot of people are not used to. So very, very slowly and methodical to begin with. You might see, or people have commented that, when I've taught them this and demonstrated it, they think, well, I can't do that, it's too fast, and they perhaps dismiss practicing it. But it's something that might take a long time to get together, but you want to start really slowly, and you'll be surprised at how quickly it all comes together. So here's an example of 30-second notes, 65 BPM. So after you've practiced that, something like that tempo, perhaps a little slower if it's comfortable, then you would want to do that for a long period before you move on to the next tempo, and then maybe go up in increments of 5. That's what I tend to do. So stay on one tempo for a long time rather than changing tempos a lot, but only by 1 or 2 BPM. It's almost pointless. For something like this, anyway, there's not a lot of brain activity. It's not a hard exercise in terms of thinking about a sticking. So perhaps increments of 5, using the same cycle, the same amount of drums, and building it slowly. Like I said, it's a long-term goal. It might take you 2 months to get, to increase by 20 BPM, for example, but that doesn't matter. It's a great practice room exercise for your hands and your movement, regardless of whether you want to be able to play it very quickly in a fill situation. So then the next step in 30-second notes, or 16ths like we mentioned earlier, is to change the amount of drums. I like using it sometimes between just these 3 toms. So you have that cycle or grouping of 3 very close to each other, only a group of 2 in the middle. So I based it around the 3 toms here, but then when I felt like it, I'd introduce another drum. I would introduce the snare drum and did these 4, and then I went back to these 3, and then I did these 3, 1, 2, 3. Obviously, I'm demoing it at a very fast tempo, so you would slow it down, but it's interesting to pick different combinations. If you have something on your left, that's a real challenge. It's something I've been practicing a little bit recently. It's hard with the hi-hats, but it's a good movement exercise. So you could do this floor tom to this floor tom. You could then extend it and do this floor tom on the left, something over on the far right. So it really gets the heart rate going and just the ability to cover gaps without clicking your sticks or hitting other instruments or rims or something. So that's something to think about. Next step is to do 16th note triplets. So we're doing groups of 6, same idea, 2 notes per drum, 3 on the last and then the first. Exactly the same, just 6 notes per quarter note. So the same thing applies with the triplets, using different cycles across different drums, coming up with different repeating patterns. It's nice to be able to play it in a different note rate. So now we have the 32nds and the 16th, and the 16th note triplets. The triplets feel different and they sound different, so it's good to have both of those options. So there will be another part to this lesson where we deal with some very specific or more specific little chunks of flurries around the drums to use in fill ideas. This is the foundation, this is for the practice room, and it's also for the playing situations, very much so, but this is kind of open-ended, and so you have to practice a lot. You have to, number one, get it together around the drums at different tempos, and then you have to work out yourself how to put it into fills and playing situations. So I will do another lesson where I give some specific examples that can be inserted into musical situations straight away. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next lesson.